East African Business Council, and I handle trading services at the Business Council, and ICT is part of what I hold in my docket, and I hold it dearly. I wish to welcome you on behalf of GIZ and EABC, who are the co-partners and co-organizers of this webinar, where we are going to look at cybersecurity in the region, its importance, its relevance to business, and how can we scale it up to ensure that we increase efficiency in our region. There's a lot that is going to be discussed, lined up today, but of course, I wish to let you know that we have our CEO, Mr. John Bosco Kalisa, who will be giving his welcome remarks and give a presentation. And we'll also have GIZ, who will have a representative from GIZ, who will give us the opening remarks. Mr. Simon Holstein will give the welcome remarks. Then Mr. John Bosco Kalisa will give an introductory speech, but also introduce the relevance of cyber resilience for business in the EAC. We have spotlight presentations by two experts. We have business perspectives, cybersecurity trends for business, and bridging the skills gap for a resilient industry in the EAC. I will have Mr. Anthony Muiro, the Associate Director, Cybersecurity, Privacy and Trusted Technology, Ernst & Young. We also have Mr. Victor Capill, the cybersecurity legal expert from Kenya ICT Action Network, who will be talking to us on the current legal framework in the cybersecurity that businesses need to know. We'll have a Q&A session after that. And of course, after that, we'll have a panel discussion, have a dedicated panel of able-bodied experts, ICT experts, that will introduce at a later stage. So without further ado, let's ensure that this webinar is well coordinated. If you're not speaking, kindly switch off your microphone. We will request you to post your chats, in the chat, your questions or your concerns or input to any discussion or reaction to the panelists. Please, let's stay in the perspectives of the region. Let the discussion be specific on ICT and what has lined up today as a theme. We call upon you to, of course, interact with our social media handles. Of course, we have a hashtag EABC Jumia. The Twitter will be at EABC Jumia, at EACJZ, at EACICIA _info, and at ES Senate. Those are hashtags. Please, we will call upon you to interact with those social media handles. Please keep it. And the hashtag is Cybersecurity EAC. The hashtag today is Cybersecurity EAC. Please ensure that you interact with our Twitter today and the hashtag today. So without further ado, let's welcome Simon to give us the welcome remarks. Thank you very much. Simon, please take the floor.
Geoffrey, maybe before Simon, I suggest that it is important to know just a quick one from each country who is present. It's important to know who are attending this webinar before Simon comes in.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your guidance. Let's have like 1 minute, actually half a minute for everyone, your names, where you're coming from, and the company or organization you represent, so that we make it as quick as possible. Thank you very much. In the interest of time, please. Thank you. And maybe do you want to start with the EABC team that is here, then GIZ team, then we have our guests, the participants. Edie, would you want to go first?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Geoffrey. I want to thank you and Simon and the team. I'm John Bosco Kalisa. I'm the CEO for East African Business Council. And thanks for the organizers and the moderator, Geoffrey.
Asante sana. CEO. Karibu tena. Someone from EABC on this call? Patrick?
Thank you very much, Geoffrey. Yes, I'm Patrick Mushi. I'm the Communication and Membership Officer of Council, and I'm happy to be part of this webinar, and I welcome all the business community to join EABC membership and feed. Thank you.
Karibu sana. Thank you, Mr. Moshi. You've done a very good job. So you're already recruiting. Thank you. Anyone from EABC? If not, then we can go to GIZ, please. Mr. Simon.
Thank you very much, Geoffrey, and good morning to everyone. I will say a few more things later on, so I'll keep it short. My name is Simon Hochstein, and I'm Project Director at GIZ in Arusha for the East African Community Corporation. And I'm here with my colleague who actually from GIZ side did all the work in preparing this great webinar. So please, over to you, Evelyn.
Thank you. Good morning to you all, and welcome once again to this regional webinar on cybersecurity. I'm happy to have a good audience, and also I want to appreciate all the speakers and panelists who have really devoted their time to be with us today. Karibu, and I hope we'll all have a fruitful discussion. And my name is Evelyn, said by my colleague. I'm the advisor working for the same project, dSkills at EA, and working with GIZ. Karibu.
Thank you, Evelyn. I also see Sarah, who's also from our team. Sarah, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Simon. Thank you all. My name is Sarah. I am project advisor in the same project as Evelyn and Simon, also based here in Arusha at the East African Community Secretariat. And I'm working mostly on academia-industry collaboration and very much looking forward to this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, dear members. Please, let's make it quick, in no specific order, please.
All right. So good morning, everyone. My name is Anthony Muyuro. I'm pleased to be in this forum. I'm also privileged to have a session to present. So happy to meet all of you, and it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
My name is Hamis Pembe. I'm Operations Director from Swahili Soft Technology based in Zanzibar. I'm happy to be in this webinar. Thank you.
Karibu kutoka Zanzibar. Good to see you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. My name is Dr. Catherine Capill. I'm the outgoing CEO of the ICT Authority, which is a government agency under the Ministry of ICT and Youth Affairs that takes care of infrastructure, capacity building, and general support for the ICT sector in Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Karibu. Next.
Good morning. My name is Jerry Schumer. I'm CIO for NBC Bank, based in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next. Karibu.
So good morning. My name is Dennis Leatum from Kenya, representing Dr. Ali Simba of YACO, and also working with the Communications Authority of Kenya at the National Competence-Based Response Team. And happy to join you for this webinar and looking forward to fruitful engagement. Thank you.
Karibu sana. Thank you, sir. Anyone else on the call that would want to tell us who they are?
Good morning. My name is Chilaun Tamasgon. I'm the Chief Regional Economist for the African Development Bank based in Nairobi. And happy to be here. I've had a number of engagements with the East Africa Business Council and the AAC Secretariat. So happy to be here and to listen to this interesting webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good to have you here again.
Hello,
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, karibu.
Hello. This is hello. Hello to
Mr. Jean Bosco, please go ahead. I think Mr. Jean Bosco, we've lost you, and we see your hand up. Karibu Mr. Isaac Mwangi from Kenya Airways. Karibu sana.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yes, my name is Gaspari Shiliba. I'm joining from Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. I'm working with UBX as a cybersecurity manager. I'm happy to join this webinar, and I hope I'll get something which will be useful for me and the society at large. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you from Tanzania. Mr. Penda Mugisha from Rwanda, from Rura. Karibu sana. Anyone else? Please, Blasius.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Ephraim Kamwaya. I'm a network administrator for CMRC. I'm here in Dar es Salaam. Happy to be.
Thank you, Ephraim from Dar es Salaam. Karibu sana. Anyone else?
Good morning.
hello. This is Bikash Chudal from UK. I am an international business director of 52 Global. We especially work for cybersecurity. Our strategic partner is IBM and Flagship. Both are based in US. Thank you.
Thank you very much from the United Kingdom. Thank you very much for joining our webinar. Look forward to your contribution. Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. John Polycarp Shayo from Arusha, Tanzania. Karibu sana. Thank you. From New Life Trading Company Limited. Thank you. So, Edie, I think we have exhausted everyone that is on the call. Maybe the rest can just jot down their details on the chat. Please use the chat room to tell us who you are, where you're coming from, the company representing. We'll appreciate so that we can be able to get touch base with you at a later stage after this webinar. Thank you very much. So I call upon Mr. Simon Hochstein, please, to give us your official welcome remarks. Karibu, Bwana Simon.
Asante sana na karibuni sana. Good morning to everyone again. Thank you all for making the time and joining this webinar, ICT4Business webinar, cybersecurity. And I would like to start by appreciating and acknowledging our partner, the East African Business Council. Very happy to virtually see you again, CEO John Bosco and as well Geoffrey. Thank you for moderation and the team. Patrick was there. I would also like to acknowledge the high-level panelists and speakers of this webinar that have also introduced themselves already, like the CEO of the Kenya ICT Authority, Dr. Catherine Getau, Dennis Loyatum, Jerry Schumer, and Esther Lugoe for the panel, as well as our key experts that will provide insights during this webinar, Anthony Muyoro and Victor Capill. I would also like to thank everyone from businesses, from private sector, from technical consultancies that have joined this call and that are with us here this morning. I will keep it short since we are already advanced in time, and I would like to leave the time really to the technical discussions and to the expert and panel session. let me just briefly say a few words. First of all, why are we talking about cybersecurity? So from our perspective and from what we have experienced, the application of ICT, although in its early stages, the importance of cybersecurity is still noteworthy, and this for two reasons. First of all, especially since COVID-19 led often to force ad hoc application of ICT systems, it is crucial for businesses to consider the safety of their newly applied systems. Dangers include theft of personal data, espionage, sabotage, or potential ransom. So key threats for any business in the region. Also, companies need to be aware of the legal framework to assure compliance in their processes, in transferring data and other activities. The second is we are on a regional webinar together with regional organizations. So this regional aspect is key for businesses to be able to transfer data between different countries seamlessly across borders. And for this, it's important to keep the legal framework also in mind, and while it is developing, to be sure to harmonize certain legal regulations and requirements. So in short, businesses need to be aware of the risk of cybersecurity, how they can improve resilience, and how they are compliant, and what to consider in their cross-border activities. The dSkills at the A project, the framework from the German East African Community Corporation that builds the framework for this workshop, is the project Digital Skills for an Innovative East African Industry. It's a project between Germany and the East African community since 2017, with key partners like the Secretariat of the East African Community, Inter-University Council for East Africa that could unfortunately not be with us in this webinar today, as well as the East African Business Council, one of our key partners in this project, with many others, just to keep it short. The objective is to strengthen the digital transformation of businesses, as well as employability and innovation capabilities of youth in the region. So there are a variety of efforts and a variety of measures that I would not go into too many details now. I would just like ask anyone who is interested now to, after this or during this webinar, to learn more about the project in general, to feel free to reach out to me or my colleagues. Just with specific now relation to what we discussed here in cybersecurity, I would like to highlight that this project is raising awareness of the need for cybersecurity, such as through this webinar. It's facilitating multi-stakeholder dialogues, as we have now, between businesses, experts, there's also academia in the call, and the public sector, to see what businesses needs in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of protection, but also in terms of free transfer of data. In addition, within the scope of the dSkills at the A project, we're very happy to have discussions with Kenya ICT Authority on improving capacities and capabilities for cybersecurity, and offering a training to the region on cybersecurity, an academia-based curriculum that has been transferred to an online unfacilitated training course. And with this, I would like to hand over for the opening remarks and introductory speech of the CEO of the East African Business Council, John Bosco Kalisa. Very happy to open this webinar together with you, and thank you for your support in the collaboration in organizing this workshop. Thank you, everyone. I wish you all a very interesting discussion, and we hope that we come out with concrete feedbacks and also recommendations to see how we can go forward and what is needed, how we can support. Santini sana, and enjoy the webinar. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, go ahead.
CEO, please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Simon. Really, I want to thank you, Simon. I want to thank my team, thank the GIZ, and I appreciate all EABC members here, the business leaders, the media fraternity, and all the donors and the service providers. Generally, it is the right time that we are organizing this important session on cybersecurity. It is very critical as the region is recovering back from the effect of COVID. When you look at the trends and when you look at the sector that are driving the recovery, the e-commerce, the service sector plays a critical role in our recovery agenda. So I think that it is important that we highlight, understand the issue of cybersecurity in terms of building back better, in terms of resilience, our economic resilience as the region. It is very important. It is very important as I've been seeing the reports that when you look at the losses that emanates from the cyber crimes, they are very huge. There is a report that a special report that was produced by Cybersecurity Venture that would be losing around 10.5 trillion annually if we don't take serious measures in terms of cybersecurity. So it's really a very complex subject, very complex in the sense that we need to understand it better. We need to advise our members. We need to support the business community in terms of mitigation measures. How do we handle cyber crimes? They impact every sectors in our economy. They hinder our development agenda. What can we do in terms of understanding how and minimizing the economic impact of the cyber security? So it's important that this session is coming at the right time. So what I would say that from EABC perspective and GIZ, we take this session a very serious session in terms of understanding how can we help companies, especially the business community, in terms of mitigating the economic impact of the cyber security. How can cyber resilience be improved? What are the tools and strategies in our place? What are the protocols? How do we implement those protocols that are enshrined in our treaties, our strategies across the region in terms of mitigating the impact? How do we make cybersecurity a part of our corporate culture? Jenna was I was talking to the CEO of MTN here in Rwanda. They were saying the crimes are very huge. They are very huge. The way you use your password, how do you use your password in terms of various transactions you are conducting, and the strength of your password. It is one of the weak area where the cyber crimes can penetrate and impact on your transactions. How do we have constant data backup? How do we raise awareness? As Simon said, the purpose is to raise awareness of the cyber issues and the crimes across the region and across the continent. So I think it's really important, and EABC is very keen and happy to engage and support our members in understanding the issues related to cybersecurity. And we will be working closely with the GIZ, especially the dSkills project led by Simon in terms of raising the awareness. So it comes at the right time. Currently, we are focusing on the business community, but we want even to scale it up to other stakeholders, the government, the civil society, to understand the dangers, the crimes that are happening through the cyber-related issues. So I think really, I don't want to take much of your time. I want to wish you and give you an opportunity to deliberate and discuss further what are the tools at our disposal in terms of mitigating the impact of the cyber related issues. So with these few remarks, really, I want to officially open this session. Let it be open, and I'm happy that this session is bringing experts not only from the region but from the whole world. I heard from that's why I even decided that we make a quick introduction. We have key experts from the UK, from the US joining this webinar. That demonstrates the interest, the commitment, and how we can work together in terms of building resilience. So with those few words, Geoffrey, I want to thank you and Simon and wish you a very productive engagement. Thank you and have a good day.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. May I request someone that is speaking, please mute your microphone. If the conversation is not related to this, kindly please, we appeal to you to put off your microphone if you're not a keynote speaker or a presenter. Thank you very much, and please ensure that that does not happen so that you don't interfere with the efficiency of this webinar. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, CEO, and we really take note of your guidance in terms of bringing out the tools that will be required by our members to ensure that they keep the resilience of their companies and also improve efficiency of their operations. It's very, very important. As we said, we have an array of experts that are lined up today to do nothing but that, give us the guidance, what is at our disposal, how can we use it, and how can we secure our businesses. Look at cybersecurity as securing your own country, not at the borders this time, or not internally, but securing your own business using these digital tools. And this is what we are here to learn, and we are sure that at the end of the webinar, we'll have something to take as a takeaway that will definitely help our businesses to thrive better amidst this COVID-19 pandemic as we recover from its adverse effects. So thank you very much, CEO. Now we will go ahead with spotlight presentations, and the first one, the expert insight will come from Anthony Muyiro, the Associate Director of Cybersecurity, Privacy and Trusted Technology from Ernst & Young. Maybe I want to do a bit of knowing who he is. He is a regional leader at the forefront of cybersecurity development in Africa and leads the Ernst & Young Cybersecurity, Privacy and Trusted Technology practice for East Africa, where Anthony helps the organization to build trusted, secure, and more resilient technology infrastructures. He's a highly entrepreneurial and an effective team builder and maintains a senior client relationship with a proven track record on delivering cybersecurity transformations and its outcomes. Yeah, Anthony comes for major play. He has worked for major players in the financial, telecom, and other various industries in countries such as Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, South Africa, among others. He's an expert in cyber strategy and governance, cyber regulations, data privacy and protection. He's an ISO 27001, security architecture, threat intelligence, vulnerability assessments and penetration testing, and business continuity management. Anthony holds a certified data privacy solutions, is a certified data privacy solutions engineer. He's a certified information systems auditor. He's a certified risk information systems controls professional. He's also an ITIL and CSX certifications holder. So with those few introductions and accolades, Simon, we welcome you to give us that expert presentation. Karibu sana, thank you very much.
Geoffrey, there's someone who raised their hand. Perhaps you give him a minute to clarify. He may need your
oh, yes.
Your support.
Someone has a hand up. Who is this? I don't happen to see the hand up. Probably it was unintentional. But please, maybe at a later stage after the presentation, you can raise your hand. Or if there's something burning that you want to tell us before the presentation comes through, please, this is your time. Otherwise, we are mindful of the time we have for this webinar. It's not going to exceed 2 hours. Having not seen any hand, I take it that it will come after during the Q&A, and we have Anthony. Please take the floor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Geoffrey, and good morning, everyone on the call. First of all, I'd like to thank the EABC team as well as the GIZ team for this opportunity just to offer a few and provide a few insights on this very interesting topic on cybersecurity. And I'd also like to acknowledge everyone on the call. Thank you also for dialing in. I'm sure we're here, all of us to learn from each other. I can see many experts on the call. I see people that I know, and even from my home country in Kenya. So I'm very pleased just to connect with you all. So my name is Anthony Muyuro, currently serving as Associate Director for Cybersecurity and Privacy for EY East Africa. I also wear a different hat where I'm the president of ISACA Kenya chapter. And ISACA is a professional body, a professional association that deals with certifying and building skill and talent, particularly in areas such as IT security, IT audit, risk and governance. And then, of course, we do a lot of research as well as standards formulation. ISACA is a globally it's a global body, but we have in-country chapters, and I'm privileged to be heading the Kenya chapter. So I'll jump right into my presentation, and this is basically one of the areas that over the years we've seen it, take different shapes and morph into a very big thing. But I'm going to attempt basically just to simplify and to really bring out the key tenets that I wanted to share this morning. So when we talk about cybersecurity, of course, it's at the back of technology and its use. And we know that, technology has actually been very pervasive in terms of the industry and the usage and applicability. But now with this, it also has a different side where basically now we have threats and real concerns around the security and even the resilience of this technology landscape. Hence, cybersecurity emerged because alongside that, we have a lot of threats. And these are basically risks that have become very existential, and some of them even have a systemic impact should they materialize. So now it's more important than ever for every organization to really have a firm cybersecurity footing. And basically what we are saying is that particularly for businesses, it's one of the areas that has to be top of the agenda. World Economic Forum recently ranked cyber risk as top 5, one of the top 5 risks. So we can see that this is something that not only when you talk about a macroeconomic context, it has a very big effect because now we've seen, cybersecurity becoming even a national agenda and something that is actually being used for, very nefarious reasons. So for organizations, I believe it's very important at the back of the digitization and even how we're using technology and the good use that we're having, deploying technology. It's good that we look at the other side. What are the risks and how do we manage this? And we've seen this evolution happening because the challenge here is how the technology landscape has also been evolving. And now, right now, one of the things and one of the questions that organizations need to answer is, how do you get visibility of your digital estate? Are you able to tell, how, the different assets that you have? Because sometimes you find it's a challenge because understanding the whole ecosystem and just to put a hand on the different cyber risks that you may have may become a challenge. So here the question I would ask is, how can you as a business get visibility of your digital ecosystem, understanding how you interconnect with different partners? Because now we talk about supply chain risks, and this goes to even your third parties and even to your fourth parties. So visibility is very, very key. So the principle here is simple. You need to map the different assets that you have that actually entail your digital ecosystem. The second thing and the second question we need to answer is, how can you be sure of the security of your organization? The different security controls that you have deployed, are they effective? Right? Because it's even worse to have a tool and not have it being effective, because then you'd really have a false sense of security, right? So whatever you have and the different controls that you may have in place, are you sure that they're effective? Are they achieving the objective of securing your organization? So can you have that certainty that your organization is secured? So what are some of the controls that you have? What are some of the data that ideally you're hosting? And what is the security of that, just to give you that that level of confidence. And then lastly, and this is where it gets very, very interesting, is how should you respond in the event of an attack? Right? Because as an industry, we've ideally just moved from just cybersecurity, which deals with securing, the digital ecosystem as it may be, to now cyber resilience, which now deals with, in the event that you even have an attack, can your organization withstand it? What are some of the things that you need to have in place to make sure that not only is your business secure, but you can effectively, within the shortest time and utilizing the least resources, jump back to normalcy? Can you respond? Can you bounce back when such an event occurs? And this is where I really want us to, shift the focus to, in terms of, is the organization cyber attack ready? And that is a very loaded question, because ultimately in cybersecurity, we normally say that, there are no obsoletes. If anyone told you that the organization is 100% secure, that's a lie, because we've seen that even the best invested organizations in security, ultimately, chances sometimes they still fall prey to cyber attacks. So it's not a question of how many tools you have. It's not a question of, how much money you have. It's not even a question of how sophisticated some of these tools might be, but it's a question of also looking at, there's always that 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degrees margin of error that some of these cyber, attacks normally prey on. And we've seen instances of very big organizations, in fact, global leaders, if I may, that have actually fell prey to cyber attacks, and some of these things have materialized. So there are no obsoletes in security. It's to the degree that you can have the confidence of the things that you've applied. So as a business, this is a very solid question that you need to anchor some of these investments and some of the strategies you need to have in place just to make sure that you enhance your cyber resilience. So how vulnerable are you? And when you look at the threat landscape, basically, what are some of the agents of cyber attacks that we may need to really also, have visibility on? So data breaches, basically, they happen now and then. We talk about, credit cards being stolen, and even accounts being hijacked or even being stolen. We talk about, fraudulent, and this is where now insiders also become very prominent, where basically, like, you have some fraud-related occurrences that also happen, and then we look at things like supply chain vulnerabilities. And like I mentioned earlier, particularly when you're dealing with third parties and even your fourth parties, your organization may be secure. You might have the requisite controls that you need to, have a good posturing. But what about your third parties that you, for business purposes, you give them access to your organization? That can actually be your weakest link. And then we also look at things like social media attacks. And this particularly is interesting because now we live in an era where, social media has become so a business tool, particularly for visibility and marketing. So what happens, particularly if this is stolen, and the reputational damage there would ideally be, quite bad for your business. And when we talk about bots and also looking at even fake apps, particularly if you, you have a channel where you have a mobile app. So some of these attackers, what they do is they actually mirror this and they put a fake one that purports to be like yours. And interestingly enough, and even from our research, you normally see them to be, like the real thing because, they've been engineered very well. But of course, they have a malicious intent. And there was a research that was done, and this research concluded by the Australian Cybersecurity Centre is the average cost of each stolen record in a data breach amounts to $141. And this is basically quantitatively looking at, the impact and particularly in monetary terms, what this would mean for your business. Because now we're in a dispensation where trust is the currency of your business. If people cannot trust you, then ultimately even you'd see that customer attrition would be high because they'd be convinced that, we cannot trust this customer or this organization with our data. And if maybe you're in the financial services space, then directly there's value attributed to that. So it's very important that you also take this in terms of a priority agenda, particularly when you look at your areas that you need to focus on. And we've seen over the years, cybersecurity has ideally, risen to a level where now it's becoming even an issue of national concern. From different, ransomwares that we've seen, and the trend is always increasing because, for ransomwares, it's not going to stop anytime soon. Why? Because the cyber actors and cyber attackers have actually cracked that economic model, because the main motivator is it's not the only one, but the main motivator for most of the cyber attacks, it's normally economically driven, and where they can make money and they can appropriate this agents basically just to derive some value, then it's only obvious that it's going to increase. They're not going to stop anytime soon. And we've seen different variants from 2017 when we saw the WannaCry to now what we have as today, and different models have actually changed. When you go to dark web, and dark web is basically like a hidden black market internet that basically most of these cyber actors and most of these cyber criminals have, and that is where they do a lot of exchanges and where they trade actually. And one of the things that we saw is that there's actually an innovative model where now if at all you're not very experienced in creating this ransomware, you can basically go to the dark web and you can buy one, and it actually it has a ransomware as a service model where you pay by utilization, and when you get money from your victims, you're able to get into a revenue share with the owner of that variant of ransomware. And we've also seen this, particularly in Johannesburg. There was some time, I believe last year, where there was actually an outage because their city, it's like their KPLC basically was attacked by a ransom, and of course they were asked to pay a lot of money. And then we've seen state-sponsored attacks, and again this is also playing at that geopolitical level where we're looking at nation against nation, and this is where cyber warfare comes in, particularly those very powerful nations have actually resulted into cyber weaponry, and this is now the new dispensation that we are now in. But now coming back to East Africa, because just to localize it as well, it's also an issue for us, because we've seen even in terms of some of the research and some of the successful cyber attacks that have actually played out, some of them even affecting organizations that we know. We've seen government websites being defaced. We've seen organizations in financial services being attacked or allegedly falling prey to some of these attacks. And that is where also regulators have actually come in very strongly. In fact, I would confidently say in East Africa, all the regulators, particularly in financial services, have actually issued out guidelines, very clear in terms of some of the measures that now organizations need to take, particularly in financial services. Why? Because this has become one of the biggest risks. And when we talk about a systemic risk, is one of that cannot be ignored. So from a local point of view, we can see that there's relevance in terms of why businesses ideally should invest in cybersecurity and need to take this quite seriously. So when you talk about the impact, what are some of the impacts of a cyber attack to a business, particularly, especially if you're dealing with a lot of customers, B2C, this can have a very bad damage to your brand. Again, like I mentioned earlier, trust is the currency of trade in this dispensation. Why? Because people want to trust you. They're giving you their data. They're giving you, a value for you to store for them. So this can ideally be detrimental to your brand if at all clients and even customers lose trust in you. And then operational slowdown. When an attack happens, it's bound to have a negative impact to your organization in terms of, you've not be able to serve your clients or your customers as fast as you may want to. So ideally, this is one of also very big impacts that you may have. The other one is directly losing money and value. And this is quite, intuitive because like I mentioned earlier, economically, some of the cyber attacks are economically motivated. And then we have long-term impacts, particularly where you're trying to regain trust in the market. So when your brand is damaged from a reputational perspective and people cannot trust you, it's normally a very uphill task just to build that trust again. And then intellectual property theft, particularly if you are in that space where you basically need to create new products and you really need to innovatively, curate new services and products. And if you're in the research space, if some of this data is lost, then it can actually, you'd lose that competitive edge. Why? Because intellectual property has also been left. And then directly is the loss of customers, and this is actually an after effect. When you lose value, when you lose, reputational trust, when you're not serving your customers effectively in terms of, operational slowdown, and if your intellectual property has been stolen, and maybe, now competitors ideally have an edge over you, ultimately you're going to lose customers and you're going to lose your marketing position. So the sooner you're able to also detect this breach, and this is where cyber resiliency comes in, is the cheaper it is for your business, right? And this is based on research, and we saw that the cost of a breach to organization increases the longer a breach goes undetected. So whenever, particularly some of these attacks are normally very stealth, some of them ideally would want to be there for the long term. So they'll try to really be silent and really to be stealth so that they're not really detected. So the value of the data to an attacker decreases dramatically after this breach is detected and reported. And that is why we also need to lay emphasis on the ability for businesses not only to protect the organization, not only to protect the IT estate, but to be able to detect and further to take the requisite action that you need to contain some of these attacks. Now, this is, I want to throw this challenge. Who can tell me what these days stand for? 205 days. Maybe just quickly. 205 calendar days. Yeah. I don't know if we have any taker. I'm checking the chat box. All right. If none, then I'll give you a hint. 205 days is actually the industry average that we've seen as practitioners, the average number of days it normally takes for organizations to detect, a cyber breach, particularly the ones that have been designed to be stealth. Yes, and I can actually see very good responses. Thank you, Catherine. So it's actually the time taken for a breach to be discovered. On average, it can be lower than this, it can be more than this. Why is that? And we need to also look at why do we talk about cybersecurity? What are we protecting? Because we're not protecting servers for the sake of protecting boxes. We are not protecting, applications for the sake of just protecting them, but we're basically protecting the crown jewel. And the crown jewel in this case is actually the data. And this is where we are shining the light in terms of understanding the data. And effective cybersecurity normally follows this understanding what are your critical assets in your business? What do you need to protect the most? Because we always say that sometimes all assets will not be protected the same. It's going to be varied by the level of, the value that has been ascribed to the asset. So we have the workstations, the applications, the Active Directory that has the identities, mobile devices, the perimeter, and also the network. And that is where we're looking at. So as I conclude, we need to also understand, and I like what Sun Tzu from The Art of War says, that for you to win victory against your opponent, you have to do two things. You have to know yourself, but you also need to know the enemy. And then you're guaranteed of, winning some of these battles. And this is very important because the last slide talks about the actors. Who are these actors that we are against? So at the very novice level, you'll have script kiddies, and these are very unsophisticated attackers. And then you move now to the more advanced guys who are now the sophisticated attackers. And some of them ideally also take the angle of corporate espionage, particularly if it's a targeted attack against your business and they want to gather information so that they can particularly either share it with a competition or sell it to them, so that you lose your competitive edge. And then now we move to the even more sophisticated quadrant where we talk about organized crimes and syndicates. And this is what we've even seen even in Kenya. We have syndicates, and some of them are actually university students in terms of what they do. And then of course state-sponsored attackers, and this is cyber warfare. And then next level threats, this is where technologies such as AI, machine learning have actually been deployed. And we did a research. Who are the most likely source of an attack? So this is a question that we had asked in one of our surveys. And it is interesting, the finding that we got was, number one, ranking there is cyber syndicates. But number two, which is very, very interesting, is employees. And employees, we talk about the insider threats. And where we talk about people being at the very center of your cybersecurity strategy, it's very, very important. Now, I'm going to jump through the slides, and I'm going to go to the last one in the interest of time. And this is what I want to mention in terms of how then do you make sure that you build a sustainable cybersecurity model. And this is what we have. Number one, complicate. Ability to complicate an attacker's ability to achieve their objective. And this is making it very hard for them to do that. And that's attributed to even some of the hygiene issues, things like patching, because cybersecurity, interestingly enough, 70% would also deal with hygiene issues, And then of course, the second one is detection, ability to detect if an attack, happens in your business. And the third one is to respond. Once you detect a cyber attack, what do you do? And this is where a team needs to be developed, and there needs to be effective training so that they know, and it's well coordinated, how to respond and to remediate an attack. And then lastly is on education. And when you talk about skill and talent being at the center of this agenda, is very, very important. Not only should you train the users, you should also train the customers. You should also train, if you have your board, they also need to be trained. But more importantly, you need to also have very, very good skills who are going to be your gatekeepers. And when we talk about a sustainability model, this is the very best we can simplify it. The 4 key things that we need to have in place just to ensure that effective cybersecurity posture is maintained. And at the heart of it is governance. And governance ideally deals with making sure that you have effective processes and effective mechanisms just to deal with this. And you're able ideally just to improve over time. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my time. Thank you very much, for the session, and looking forward just to, learn even from the subsequent sessions. So over to you, Tim. Bye.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Thank you very much, Anthony. I would virtually feel that everybody wanted to listen more from you, but of course, time is another threat to such discussions. So we'll definitely require that we'll get back to you during the Q&A session. We really not what you've opened our eyes in terms of the need for securing our businesses, those evolving threats. And what triggered my thinking is actually employees being one of the sources of the threats. And the recommendations of having a cautious workforce and having an effective governance system is very important. So thank you very much, Anthony. We'll definitely require that you share with us that presentation so that we keep interacting with it and also looking at the current data that is in there. Thank you very much. So the next presenter will be Mr. Victor Capill, cybersecurity legal expert on Kenya ICT Action Network. And maybe to speak a few words about Mr. Victor Capill. Victor Capill is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya with a keen interest in leadership, research, technology, social justice, and empowerment of young people. Victor is a cybersecurity legal expert and a trustee of the Kenya ICT Action Network, KICT Network. He's also an ICT policy think tank where he focuses his efforts on research, advocacy, and capacity building on emerging ICT policy and on various aspects where human rights intersect with the technology, including internet freedom, privacy, and cybersecurity. Victor is one of the founders of Lawmaker Partners LLP, and is a law firm where he serves as a managing partner. Victor is still also a member of the Law Society of Kenya, the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators of Kenya, the Kenya section of the International Commission for Jurists, ICJ Kenya, and further, he represents KICTNet on the advisory network of the Freedom Online Coalition, which is a group of governments who have committed to work together to support internet freedom and protect fundamental human rights. Of course, there are free expression, association, assembly, and privacy online worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Victor Capill to also give us his expert insights on our business, on the current legal framework in cybersecurity that businesses need to know. Welcome, Mr. Victor, and you can take the floor. You can take the mic. Thank you very much.
I don't know whether I can share my screen.
Yes, please do. We haven't yet viewed the screen yet. If you could try again.
It looks like there's a bit of a challenge with the screen sharing. But let me just, first of all, apologize that I'm in a motor vehicle. I was stuck between traffic, so I needed to, take a moment and stop. This is Nairobi. But I just want to point out a few things for the benefit of the people. First is that over the past couple of years, we've seen governments, everybody adopting digital technologies, especially in light of COVID. There have been a lot of remote work across different sectors. Many businesses have had to transition to the digital space. A lot of services by financial service institutions, digital payments, telcos using mobile money, popularity of ride-hailing applications, and a lot of e-commerce going on. We've seen a lot of websites such as Gigi, Jumia, people marketing on social media their products, and the consequence of that is that it has increased risks, as the previous speaker has mentioned, cases of social engineering, malware, database manipulation, remote access, deployment of rogue devices, cybercrime cases have increased, and in terms of the costs in Africa, businesses lose at least 4.12 billion every year to cybercrime. In Uganda, the cost is $42 million. In Rwanda, it's 5.8. In 2018, the figure was $2.298 million. In Tanzania, was $85 million. So we can see that there's quite a huge change in terms of cost, rather, to cybercrime, because businesses will lose income when they're attacked. Looking at the National Cybersecurity Indices, currently the Burundi ranks lowest, which is ranked at 157, followed by Tanzania, which ranked at number 130, followed by Rwanda at 88, Kenya at number 61, and Uganda at number 58. So you can see generally our countries within the EAC are really falling behind in terms of the global ranking of cybersecurity preparedness. With respect to policies and strategies, across all the 5, Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, and Tanzania, and strategies on cybersecurity. Kenya has a national ICT policy adopted in 2019. It has an outdated cybersecurity strategy, protection policy 2019. Rwanda has a cybersecurity policy and a sector strategic plan for 2018-2024. and the National Cybersecurity Strategic Plan. Rwanda has National Information Security Policy of 2014, and they recently published a draft National Cybersecurity Strategy of 2021. Tanzania has a National ICT Policy of 2016, and also has a draft cybersecurity strategy. In terms of laws, again, the challenges we have is that a lot of legislation are largely focused on cybercrime and very little focus on coordination and cooperation and reporting of stakeholders. So across the country, we are seeing there are computer misuse laws. So in Burundi, we have, they use the penal code provisions. That's why we put cybercrime provisions. Kenya has its 2018 Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act, and of course, it adopted a 2019 Data Protection Act. Rwanda has two laws adopted in 2016 and 2017. That is Law Number 26 of 2017 and Law Number 24 of 2016 governing information communication technologies, while Uganda has the Computer Misuse Act of 2011 and also adopted a Data Protection Act in 2019. Tanzania relies on 2015 cybercrime legislation. And what can we say about our legal framework? One is that the legal framework does not vacuum. It operates in a certain context, and the context has already been described by the previous speaker. But it is important to note that there are still gaps in our legal framework. There is still very little support in terms of policy and law for greater awareness, resourcing of the cyber incident response centers, training of law enforcement, prosecution, and judiciary. So in terms of enforcement of laws, there's still gaps. There's still largely poor reporting of attacks. So a lot of them go and report it, and as a result, they go and investigate it and prosecute it. So as a result, whether we have good laws or not, the poor implementation of those frameworks by other stakeholders, including businesses who are usually affected because of the fear of reporting, then becomes a problem for law enforcement, because you cannot prosecute what you don't know. Businesses still do not have the capacity to anticipate, detect, and respond to cyber threats whenever they occur. And as a result, despite the existence of certain provisions within the laws, it's still a big challenge in terms of enforcement. As I conclude, I'd just like to say that the competitiveness and leadership of the region in the ICT sector will depend largely on its ability to deploy ICTs in all the aspects, including proper ICT laws. At the regional level, other than Rwanda, none of the other countries have adopted the Africa Union Cybersecurity Convention on privacy and data protection, which is also a challenge in terms of building best practice and common approaches at the regional level. So in terms of what I think could be done is that the countries in the region and stakeholders need to put their hands together to review updates and address the current gaps in the policies and legislation, provide for comprehensive and coordinated mechanisms in the laws and policies to facilitate better cooperation and implementation of this legislation, incorporate global standards and best practices in this legislation, adopt data protection laws. You will recall Tanzania is yet to adopt data law and put up an independent data protection commission, and so is Burundi, because the data we are protecting belongs to personal individuals, and therefore having in place data protection laws is important. Also, they need to review and update relevant provisions of the penal laws and also the evidence legislation to take into account the impact of cyber crimes on the digital environment, so that these issues can actually be dealt with. And also, individuals and companies need to put in place cybersecurity policies, laws, and strategies for their own business to ensure that at the very basic level, they have in place policy framework to enable them assess their risks and also respond to these challenges as they occur. So I will conclude there, but also to add that it is important for the business community to work closely with regulators and other stakeholders in a multi-stakeholder approach to ensure that the development of policies and laws is also inclusive, open, and broad to ensure that all relevant stakeholders can participate. We are only as strong as our weakest link, and cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. So everybody needs to put their hands together and work collaboratively to address the gaps that we have in the laws and policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. Maybe we may consider not to leave that part for a few minutes because the Q&A session coming, and expect that probably participants may have a question to you, so you may just keep the parking for a few minutes. But otherwise, we thank you very much. Of course, as we said, there's the varying regulations across the partner states, and the fact that they are varying, it creates the gaps even in implementation of the regulations. But also, you talked about a very important thing in terms of how do we enforce the regulations laws. Of course, the levels of enforcement are still very also not harmonized, but also having the data protection laws across the partner states. We wouldn't definitely, if there are no laws in some partner states, then the threats will definitely come from those partner states that don't have, that have not already enacted those data laws. So thank you very much, Victor, for your time, and I hope you will drive safely after. But now let's have a Q&A session. Anyone with a question to the two gentlemen, the two presenters, we have 5 minutes. We're already 10 minutes out of time. So Evelyn, I can see a hand from Evelyn.
Thank you, Geoffrey. I just wanted to highlight that we could push the Q&A to the end of the panel discussions for the interest of time, so that we can also, I mean, if anyone has questions, can leave them in the chat and we'll highlight them, because also some of our panelists do have a limited time to stay with us today.
Okay, then if that's agreeable, then it's fine. Let's have the Q&A saved or noted down, then we can have them later at the end of the panel session. Kindly please send your questions or inputs to the chat. My team at the back front will collect them and forward them to you respectively. So now it's time now to have the panel, to constitute our panel. We have a panel of experts. I wanted to recognize that Dr. Catherine Gateo is on the call, still on the call. If you are, please kindly, we need to recognize that you're still around. Catherine?
Here I am, I'm here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your patience. Esther Lugoe, the co-founder and cybersecurity lead at Serensic Africa. Thank you, Esther. Thank you very much. Dennis Loyatum, you're still around?
Morning, Geoffrey, I'm around. Thank you.
Asante. Jerry Schumer.
Yes, I'm still around, Geoffrey. Thanks.
Very much. Thank you very much, all my panelists. So our dear panelists, thank you very much for making time. And I will, each panelist will have around 5 minutes to the questions. I think then we'll start with Dr. Catherine Gateo, the CEO of Kenya ICT Authority. Catherine, how can businesses leverage existing and new policies and regulations in order to avoid risks of cyber attacks and strive towards a resilience? Catherine,
thank you very much for that question, and thank you for having me, the EABC, GIZ, and everyone who is here. Now that's an interesting question, because I have other things to say very briefly. One of them is I believe that cybersecurity and cyber resilience is actually at its infancy. I was trying to think that if we were having a meeting right now to discuss how each business should protect itself physically from physical threats, using its own resources and its own capacity, I'm sure there'd be an uproar. you would ask me, have we gone back to the Middle Ages, where everybody had a weapon and people with more resources had their own personal armies to counter the physical threats from their neighbors? Now, we have come to a time in history where technology has become almost ubiquitous. It has become more or less essential, and yet we are still expecting the Middle Age strategy, where everyone, do we say one for himself and God for all, approach to protection. Now, having said that, just as food for thought, I will say maybe what the government has done to try and help businesses, and then I would say what the businesses need to do to respond in order to help themselves. Firstly, of course, the government has recognized this as an issue and has invested. In Kenya, we do have an incident response unit, and I can see Lotte Young is here, so I'm not going to say what it does. We do have some laws in place. We have the Computer and Cybercrimes Act. We have the Data Protection Act. We have regulations. So that is very important, as Mr. Capill said, in terms of setting out the best practice. So one of the things that businesses can do is to make sure that you take time to read and appreciate those laws and regulations, and try individually and also collectively, and I'm glad that this seminar is sponsored by the East African Business Council, to discuss these laws and regulations and policies and their implications for your individual businesses, and to have individual and collective responses which are relevant. I'm quite sure that we don't yet, for example, have a common response to incidents. I think there are a few people who have not switched off their microphones, so maybe moderator, I know you've tried several times, but...
Can I request Audrey kindly mute your microphone, Audrey? Thank you.
Okay. So as already mentioned by Anthony, we do need to respond to the regulations that we are here. We do need to create protective infrastructure within our environments, just as we do, even though I've said that I think the primary responsibility stands with governments. We all have burglar proofing, at least in East Africa, on our doors and windows, and we do take some protective measures against crime. And obviously, if you had not taken any of these protective measures and somebody breaks into your premises, there'd be a certain lack of sympathy from the environment. So in the same way, you cannot really fully rely on the measures that the government has taken to protect you. So you need to take the basic protective measures in your own environment, in your own business, particularly now when so many businesses are becoming completely reliant on the technology for their operations and also for delivering product and services to clients. You know how much you will lose if your internal operations come to a standstill or are compromised. You also know how much you will lose if either your customers are exposed to risk through your operations, or if your customers are not able to access your products and services because of a cybersecurity incident. So read the laws, read the regulations individually, and also work together with your various collective agencies to see what you can do individually and also what you must do collectively for all those areas. That is protecting yourself internally and also responding to incidents. And remember that some incidents are so serious that you will not have individual resources to address it, or it may be a more extensive problem which affects several businesses. So that's why it's very important that people such as the Business Council also begin to come together and see how they can support their members collectively when they're facing a threat that goes beyond their individual resources or that affects many of their members. Capacity building is the last thing I'll mention, even though I had a whole list of things, but I know there's a lot of time pressure. We need to start early because I think one of the questions is about culture. So it's hard to build culture when somebody is entering your workplace. So please do CSR outreach into schools, into colleges, to build both the values, the right values. Remember that one of the reasons why we have such a big cyber threat is because we have a huge population of educated and ICT savvy youth who are unemployed or underemployed. And remember that cybercrime at the moment is extremely successful and lucrative for these people. So it makes sense for them to become cyber criminals as a way of employing themselves. So the more that we do as businesses to help youth have the right values and also to empower them, not only to learn about cybersecurity, but also empower them to have sources of income and so on, so they don't have to resort to this kind of crime. So I'll stop there and just say thank you very much. And of course, I'll be listening carefully to my fellow panelists, and I'll be happy to engage at a later point.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you very much for those very good insights. Actually, calling upon the youth to look at to empower the youth on alternative sources. As you said, cybercrime is quite it has a lot of money in it, very lucrative. So the more BMOs such as the East African Business Council, could someone mute? Could someone mute, please? Could someone mute? Someone mute. Someone whose microphone is open, kindly mute. Thank you. So thank you very much. Catherine. But maybe to have a follow-up question with you, Catherine, I wanted to know from your perspective, what is the role of leadership and culture in accelerating cyber resilience efforts for businesses, for example, in the East African community?
As I said, it's very important. Thank you for that question. It's very important for leaders to take on the cybersecurity as a real issue in our society. I've mentioned that this technology is now almost ubiquitous. Whether you go to the urban or the rural areas or even in remote areas, people are using devices. And they're no longer using them just for calls, although I'll say even that is a cybersecurity risk. I was looking at Mr. Capill. I was proud that as a Kenyan, he's able to continue doing business even when he's in a taxi. But I was also thinking the taxi driver can hear everything that he is saying. Those of us who are looking at the video, we could almost work out where he was, even by just looking out of the window, even if we didn't have the skills to use the metadata from the pictures he was transmitting. We can probably work out where exactly he is and such information. So now you can imagine that people countrywide are using this technology for business, and for communication. And therefore, government leaders must take on this as a major issue. And this means that governments must engage not only in law policy and regulations, but also in providing infrastructure, including protective infrastructure. They must take part in local, regional, and international policy making, because this spans borders. So the person listening in to Mr. Capill's telephone call or video link may not just be a Kenyan or a Ugandan or a Tanzanian or a Rwandese or a Burundian. It could be somebody sitting far across the world, but who is still able to exploit the information that he is sharing. So governments also need to talk to regionally, to talk internationally, so that the African challenges and the African point of view is also brought into the international and regional policymaking processes. And once again, capacity building, it is usually governments who set curricula. It is usually governments that set culture, even by the way we are building, even by what we are talking about, even by what we condemn. We set the general culture. So when leaders take on cybersecurity, then the citizens will take it more seriously, and will be able to start finding a common way out of this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Indeed, it's the role of the government to invest in infrastructure that protects the citizens, but also to build the capacities of the consumers of these digital tools, but also inculcate a culture of law-abiding citizens. That's very important. And I think maybe at EABC will engage with the governments to ensure that such recommendations are taken on. Thank you very much, Catherine. We'll definitely get back to you for your key expert insights further. But now let's we go to Mr. Dennis Loyatung, the chairman IACO Working Group 3 on cybersecurity. Mr. Dennis, what are the efforts in place put by the government in supporting businesses to remain cybersecurity resilient? Over to you, Mr. Dennis.
Thank you, Geoffrey, and thank you to fellow panelists and my senior Dr. Etau and the other participants on call, and also thank the GIZ and EABC for organizing this important webinar. So by way of introduction, my name is Dennis Loyatung. I work with Communications Authority of Kenya, specifically the Computer Incidents Response Team. And today in this call, I'm representing Dr. Alice Simba, the Executive Secretary of IACO, just to give a perspective of what IACO and also the regional governments are doing in terms of promoting cyber resilience and cyber readiness within the region. And I think the insight that we've got from the experts on call, and also I think the knowledge that we'll be getting from the other participants, I think one of the most important things that maybe I could pick up from where Dr. Getao left from is in terms of how do we respond to incidents. So incidents, as the current setup that it is, and I'll give the Kenyan context, is there are certain incidents that we are not responding to them as we should, or there are certain incidents that go unresolved because of the framework the way it is, and maybe the miscommunication or the missing link between government and private. And you see, right now we are moving towards a digital economy, and if within the region we are looking at harmonizing trade in terms of the physical trade, and what we need now to move towards is harmonizing those legal regulatory frameworks within the region. And I think this is an area that being coordinated through IACO would also help in terms of having certain frameworks that are very responsive in terms of the needs of the businesses within the region. Because what we're seeing is communication between the private and public sector is missing. And while this is missing, we are not able to establish a very good channel for information sharing, both ways, to government and from government to private sector. And I think these are areas that the government is putting in place, frameworks in terms of what needs to happen. So either through a multi-sectoral framework, like what Dr. Gitao mentioned, and also just engaging in terms of the development of these policies. What I can give an example is in terms of how you go about developing the data, let's say data regulations or data legislation. If the private sector or businesses do not contribute, to this process, then at the end of it, we'll have compliance issues, and those compliance issues might be a bit expensive. And when they're expensive, they tend not to be implemented. And if they're not implemented, then I would have a gap there, and that is where, in terms of implementation, then would not be cyber resilient. Another issue, maybe I could pick up from what was mentioned by my colleague earlier, is in terms of training. So the government at times has the multi-stakeholder, or has different arms in terms of the skill sets. Let's talk about the judiciary, law enforcement, and these could also be very good in terms of how businesses can plug in and also have their needs addressed by that kind of collaboration between government and private sector, so that we can upskill or we can reskill the business community. Because right now, hiring maybe a cybersecurity expert can be very expensive, especially for small businesses. And with the pandemic that we are in, businesses are very facing various challenges, and adding an expense in terms of getting maybe a cybersecurity expert or a data compliance expert is not one of their priorities. But if the officers who are already there could be skilled or upskilled in terms of certain components, then I think that would really help in terms of getting businesses to the level that is required. The other issue, which I think was extensively mentioned, was capacity building by the panelists and the expert insights that were shared. But capacity building is not the technical component, and I think that is what needs to be brought in terms of the businesses. The businesses now, if you look at mature economies like maybe Europe or America, it's the governance issue now is being dealt at the boardroom, and I think that is something that is slowly coming into this space. And I think government and also private sector have a role to play, so that cybersecurity issues and cyber resilience are discussed at the boardroom, so that the other resources that are needed in terms of achieving that now becomes available. The other component that is there is how do we not make cybersecurity expensive, not make cybersecurity a technical issue, not make cybersecurity a field that something that is feared, as though if you expose what the weaknesses, then somebody might punish you for that. And I think that is the kind of a responsive regulatory framework that needs to be there, so that there is close engagement. And I think participating in such workshops or webinars and engagements, then it becomes easier to understand the needs of the private sector, to understand the needs of the other players, whether they are civil society or their government, and then see what gaps are there, what needs to be addressed. What you might have was shared was there are certain strategies that have been put in place, but are they being implemented? Or if they are not being implemented, what are the challenges? Maybe the strategy that comes into play is not very responsive. So I think those are the issues that government can really help in terms of putting in place the policies, the strategies, the regulatory frameworks, the guidelines, so that they help businesses, thrive. And if we get to a point that businesses within the EAC region are able to, operate within the region without having to change. If you're operating in Uganda, you have to change your, maybe you look at certain issues. If you're operating in another country, then the requirements vary. Then this brings a bit of a challenge to the businesses. But this can only happen if we, government and the business community, engage regularly, and through such engagements, those challenges could be addressed. Just to highlight the functions that are maybe what I can say, wearing my different hat as the working group chair of IACO Working Group 3 in terms of addressing cybersecurity. So IACO is a multi-stakeholder organization, and it invites various organizations, especially from the private sector. During this time now, it's able to address certain concerns from, as an observer at the ESC, so that such concerns going into future, and if eventually it's considered an ICT body within the ESC, then that will be the right place to discuss some of these things that affect the region at large. I thank you. I know through the time constraints, but I look forward to learning from everyone on call, and also maybe pose a few questions to the experts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dennis. I continue to appeal to participants to kindly mute their microphones, if they are not speaking or if they are not presenting, because this is really disturbing the quality of sound and network. But thank you very much, Dennis. Of course, you pull out the fact that there is need to have public-private engagement. And if the private sector does not contribute to this legislation, then compliance will be a bit a challenge. But of course, we hear you at a regional level, and we will definitely engage the private sector to take part in such regulations together with the governments as they enact these legislations that affect no one else but the private sector and their operation. Thank you very much. We'll definitely get back to you for further insights. But now let's turn to Ms. Esther Lugo, the co-founder of Cybersecurity Africa. We will require to know what is the role of the digital skills and cybersecurity knowledge for businesses in achieving cyber resilience. Esther, please, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey. And good morning to you all. It's such a pleasure participating in this webinar for the very first time, and I'm excited. My name is Esther Lugo. I'm the cybersecurity expert for Cybersecurity Africa and also the co-founder. And I'm delighted and so excited to be part of this summit. And when I was told it's 5 minutes, I was like, how am I going to put all that I have in 5 minutes? So without wasting so much time, hello?
Ms. Esther, you probably need to adjust your gadget because your sound is not coming forth better. The quality is a bit not fine. You need to probably adjust or.
Okay, let me just okay. Yeah, hello?
I think that is better
Okay.
than the previous.
Right.
Great, thank you.
So I'll go back to introducing myself.
Not really, just maybe one line or two, who you are, where you're working from, then you continue. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Esther Lugo. I'm the cybersecurity expert for Cybersecurity Africa and the co-founder of Cybersecurity Africa. I'm happy to be part of the panel and happy to be joining this webinar for the very first time. And when I was told it's 5 minutes of presenting and sharing what I have with the panelists and everybody attending the webinar, I was a bit nervous because I have a lot to say. So I'm going to jump right into it.
What are the roles of digital skills and cybersecurity skills in dealing with cyber resilience? I know it has been mentioned earlier that when you speak of cyber resilience, we not only speak about cybersecurity, we speak about cybersecurity and business resilience. That just in case a cyber attack happens that's successful, that business will continue as usual. That there are proper places that after an attack, things can go back to where they are. So I'm from Tanzania, sorry I didn't mention that. So in Tanzania, we have seen massive improvement in terms of cybersecurity and ICT in general. Now the government's agenda is to put more emphasis on digital economy. So the entire country is going digital. Our president is very supportive of ICT, and there are so many proper ways put in place, policies and support towards the ICT sector, cybersecurity being one of them. So when you're speaking of cybersecurity, initially we would think cybersecurity as an IT issue. Then we moved, no, cybersecurity is not an IT issue, it's a business issue. But I would like to recommend and suggest that cybersecurity now is a societal issue. That it's each and every one of us' responsibility to be cyber resilient. In our own respective areas of work, even at home, just be cyber prepared. That even our workers at home, let's teach them how not to use cell phone wrongly, not to share mobile money pins, just to be cyber security ready. So in terms of skills that people need to have in order to be cyber resilient, we need to have cybersecurity, yes, digital skills, yes, but we need to have three things all together. We need to have the skills, the knowledge, and the right judgment. The previous presenter, Mr. Capill, mentioned the statistics on cybersecurity and mentioned that Tanzania was number 131. I would like to get a link to that because the recent report from the ITU says that Tanzania was number 2. Mauritius was number 1, then Tanzania was number 2 in terms of cybersecurity readiness and preparedness. I'm going to share that link with you over here in the chat so that you can go through it. And I'm not shocked, or because I've seen the efforts that have been put in place when it comes to cybersecurity in Tanzania. We have the TZ set, we have the TCRA, which works closely with other cybersecurity teams to make sure that we are protected. Also, we have the ICT Commission. The ICT Commission works as a link between the government sector and the private sector, and also bringing in investors and new technology. And also, last week we had 5th annual ICT conference, where we are graced by the presence of the Prime Minister, and he specifically said that the government has put a lot of resources in terms of security, and IT being one of it. So in terms of skills, one, we need to have something called human cyber capabilities. Human cyber capabilities is the ability to train your organizational team, be it lawyers, PR experts, be it accountants, on cybersecurity skills. But those cybersecurity skills should be tailored to particular roles. Let's say if there's a ransomware attack happening in an organization today, how is the legal team going to respond to it? How are they going to say about paying ransom or not paying ransom? Or if there's a cybersecurity today in an organization, what is the best way for the communication, the PR team, to communicate that to the clients? So the cybersecurity trainings have to be given, yes, but they have to be given to each team based on their roles. And apart from that, we have seen the rise of different skills that are very key in the digital sphere these days. We have the artificial intelligence, we have big data, we have so many other new skills in the ICT that are coming up. And when it comes to new technology, we know new technology means new vector attack vectors. So we need experts in such fields. We need artificial intelligence experts who have cybersecurity knowledge, and also other experts who have the same cybersecurity knowledge in their respective areas. Yeah, hello?
Yes, we can hear you, please. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Esther.
can hear me. So also I'd like to mention that as much as technology is vital, so are the people using technology. Just as we keep updating our softwares, we keep updating our infrastructure to meet the current demand, our teams in our respective organizations have to be updated as well. How? They need to have the skills, the cybersecurity skills. They also have to be trained and tested. We need to have tests that can mimic the current cybersecurity threats and see how our teams respond to such threats and how strong or weak our teams are and where to add more strength. I think that's all that I have to say for now. And if there are any questions?
Thank you, Catherine. Of course, questions will come through, and thank you for your insights, and thank you for your presentation. Quite key. Need to have a clear cybersecurity readiness in terms of skills, knowledge, and judgment, and also investing in human capital in terms of having cyber capabilities. And you recommend that all professionals, all these professional skills need to be inculcated into these professional service providers and lawyers, doctors, etc. And that is very key and worth noting. But we'll definitely come back to you on this one so that we discuss with you further. Our last panelist, Mr. Jerry Schumer, the Chief Information Officer, NBC. Thank you very much for joining and keeping the patience. So the question to you, sir, is with experience gained from the financial sector, what role does technology and proper IT infrastructure play in achieving cyber resilience? Over to you, Jerry. Thank you.
Thanks, Geoffrey, and good morning, members. And first, I would like to thank EABC and GIZ team for organizing this session. And also, I'm excited to be part of this critical discussions. So basically, I'll jump straight to the question: the role of technology and proper IT infrastructure that play part in achieving cybersecurity, cyber resilience. So basically, from the previous discussions that we've heard this morning, they're all referring to technology. Being the first presenter, he mentioned that the technology plays a significant role, 60 to 70% of the basically of the in securing the business part. But also, I would like also to bring to the point that the cyber resilience, in order to achieve cyber resilience, technology is one aspect. We have the other aspects which are key and crucial. One being the processes, the procedures and standards that have been put in place by organization to ensure that at least our organizations, our data, our infrastructures are also being protected and are being guided along the right the right path. For example, what we are seeing of late is more of do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the tools that are out there that are, business critical tools that we need to run the infrastructure. But the tool by themselves are not enough. That's what I'm saying. I'm coming up with a process, procedures, and standard that needs to be put in place, and an organization have to ensure that those processes and procedures are constantly being followed and are part of organization working culture, I would say. In addition to that, I would say we also need to have an integrated cyber resilience approach, meaning technology play part. But again, as I've added the process and procedure, they're also key. So we need to have a certain or some approach that looks at cyber resilience as a whole. And this cyber resilience framework can come up or can address a number of scenarios that may result from cyber attack. So to ensure that confidentiality breach or availability and integrity breach are also taken care of. And also from this integrated approach, you can have also cybersecurity, cyber governance, of which is sort of a framework that cover now the technology part, but also look at the people, process, and also the communication. As Esther mentioned, the communication also needs to go to the right people, the right team, if it's a management, the right information needs to go to them in an event we have a situation. And also we have to have, again, a range of measures that we need to put in place to prevent this, let's say, the attacks, also to detect them ahead of time, and also how best can we go back to the business as usual once we have a disruption. So to sum up, because I know we're out of time, to sum up, I would say technology still it's a key and it plays a significant role, but technology itself cannot achieve the cyber resilience that we are looking for or the organization that is looking for. So we need to add the process, we need to have the procedures and ensure these procedures are embedded within our organization to ensure that they're part of our working culture, so that each and every individual within the organization, from users to customers, they're all aware their role, they're all aware what it's expected of them in an event there's a situation or any disruption. So let me pause there and thank you, Geoffrey and the team. Okay, looking forward for if there's any question and also to participate more into this. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jerry. Quite important. What I pull out is that there's need to have critical tools, processes, and standards that are followed by the working and having a working culture that is cyber security resilient, but that integrated approach on cyber security resilience is very, very important as well, as well as the governance perspective. So thank you very much, Jerry. And I'm sure the financial sector is the one that has been hit hard by the threats, at least across the, no country has not faced such issues in the financial sector. So I'm sure there's a lot that probably the other private sector members could learn from you as a best practice on how you guys are doing it. But thank you very much. I can see a set of questions in the chat, and most of them are directed to Esther. These are coming from Gaspar Shiliba. Can Esther clarify how is Tanzania as a country taking care of the issue of cybersecurity in all its dimensions? Is there any tangible measures the government has taken to ensure the cybersecurity is effective, and also the cybercrime as per the effect, how effective is the Cybercrime Act of 2015? Maybe you may put down another question still to you, Esther. How are the critical infrastructure in terms of how are the critical infrastructure protected in terms of cybersecurity? We will give the examples to make the subject clear. In the same domain, what is the current status of cybersecurity? I think that has been asked. What cybersecurity model is highly emphasized in Tanzania? Structure in Tanzania. Basically, what cybersecurity model has been highly emphasized by the government of URT. Maybe just a set of questions, but can be answered in the form of one question, basically. Probably you've heard them, Esther?
Yes, and when I got this topic, I knew that it's going to be long. Like there are so many things I had to leave behind because of the time. And the questions that they have been asked here, I'll try to answer a few, and I could email the rest of the answers because they're deeper and they'll take longer time. But I'm going to jump right into the first one. So can I clarify how Tanzania is as a country taking care of the issue of cybersecurity and in all its dimensions? So I shared a report in the link, in the chat link. The link to the ITU report and on the measures they used to write the report and see how ready is Tanzania. So how prepared and how much of the readiness we have in Tanzania in terms of cybersecurity. One is the legal frameworks. Yes, we have a Cybersecurity Act of 2016, but it touches base on all the key areas in the ICT infrastructure. It needs to be updated, yes, but it touches base on all the key areas of the ICT infrastructure. Then we have the technical capabilities as a nation. One, as I mentioned earlier, we have the ICT Commission, which links the government sector and the private sector, and also it builds capacity of the nation, whereby all experts in ICT, be it in AI, networks, in anything, in any other field, you have to be registered by the ICT Commission. Why? They want, just in case there's a need, they know the country is capable of handling such things. So so far they've registered 700 experts in various fields, including cybersecurity, and also the ICT Commission, in conjunction with other agencies, offer cybersecurity trainings to the ICT experts. So whether in networks, whether you are in AI, whether you're a DevOps guy, you're being trained by the ICT Commission to be a cybersecurity expert in that respective field. And also, if I'm getting the questions correctly, regarding the next engagement.
I think Esther, you've ably explained. Majorly, the participant wanted to know what is the government of Tanzania is doing, and how ready is it. I mean that the critical mass of 700 professionals is quite a number, and also the regulation that you mentioned is quite comprehensive. But maybe there's a general perspective to it as well from Catherine. Catherine, do you want to compliment your colleague, your fellow panelists on this? To give a general view on this. Thank you. Thank you very much, Esther.
Okay, I was busy typing. Thank you, Esther. Yeah, that's great. And I can see you found resonance with the audience. There are a lot of compliments on the chat. And I also enjoyed what you shared. Now, I've sort of forgotten the question. I'm an old woman, and also I was busy responding to other questions which were on the chat. So maybe you can just briefly tell me what you wanted me to add to.
So the question is, it is just maybe you would give a general perspective in terms of what should countries do. And this one was specifically on the United Republic of Tanzania, asking what is how is Tanzania as a country taking care of the issue of cybersecurity in all its dimensions? Is there tangible measures the government has taken to ensure the cybersecurity, on cybersecurity, how effective the Cybercrime Act of 2015? But maybe to complement Esther, we do give out what would be the role of the governments. Maybe you touched it earlier, but maybe to emphasize with specific examples, how should really the government help? How should the government come in handy here on matters of cybersecurity resilience and protection of the citizen and businesses? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that reminder. I'll try to be brief also, as Esther has already commented, and the other panelists who also gave very wonderful responses. There's a lot to be said. Now, obviously, I cannot speak for the Republic of Tanzania, and even when I speak for the Republic of Kenya, I speak with caution because there are a lot of very senior agencies involved. Now, this is what governments have traditionally done. Clearly, drafting law lies within the drafting and passing laws. And the laws which have been very popular globally have been computer and cyber crimes laws, data protection laws, critical infrastructure protection laws. Some have done e-government laws, and I've even seen a very few cybersecurity laws. This has been talked about at length, so I don't need to add. Now, in addition to the law, before the law, normally there's a policy, because government has already noticed that there's an issue and they begin to think about it intellectually and practically, and to involve stakeholders, and then to draft a policy which guides especially the public sector in how to handle that issue. And that is usually followed by the drafting of a law, which now covers not just the public sector, but the entire country is bound by the provisions of that law. Following the law, there are usually regulations that are developed to make it practical and actually guide people what they need to do on a day-to-day basis to ensure that they are in compliance with the law. We also often draft standards and internal policies which guide individuals and organizations on what they should be doing and not doing. Many countries have also followed this with a compliance process. So there's an inspectorate which periodically will nose into your organization and check whether you are complying with the legal and regulatory provisions. And normally they'll do a report, and they'll give you an idea of the areas you're doing well and the areas where you are not doing so well. And usually you're given some time to then comply with the regulations and the standards. And if you don't comply, then maybe there'll be some legal provisions to discipline you. But as I pointed out in the chat, these processes tend to be very slow. And therefore, in the world of cyber, where things happen in less than an instant, I'm not sure that this can be the whole story. Now, other things that countries do is, of course, do the curriculum and influence the education system to develop the skills and values that are needed for a new area. And I think Esther has talked about this, so I don't need to add much to what she has said. Another thing a government can do is to create the protective mechanisms and the CERTs, the incident response units, and so on. Like in Kenya, we have KE CERT. They are able to assist in the event of an attack. And they also collect a lot of data and information which they use to learn and to improve their ability to respond. And another thing they do is to alert all of us. I get lots of alerts. In fact, my email is almost full of the alerts from the KE set, which tell me where the threats are in my organization or anything that is emanating from my organization that may be a threat to the general environment, so that I can respond. So they provide a lot of information. They also do outreach. We have not talked about, for example, things like child online protection, where people are targeting children in various malicious ways. And so they go out to schools and so on and tell them about what the threats are. I feel governments could do more, but maybe that will be the subject of another engagement, because I'm very conscious of the time. But I'd be happy to expand if there's an area that somebody would like to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, very much. Thank you so very much for those elderly insights. The expertise insight. Thank you very much. I think Mr. Gaspar has picked a leaf, but maybe Esther, I can see a hand. I can see your hand. Do you intend to comment? Then we can draw near the close.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Catherine. That was quite informative. And I just wanted to just say one thing, yeah. Let's create an African solution for an African problem. Because when I've been in this industry for 7 years now, and I've seen sometimes things that come from out there don't really work in our situation. Because one, our internet penetration is not as high as other continents, and our internet literacy is not as much as other continents. So when we're dealing with, let's say, cybersecurity issues, let's try to come up with solutions that are tailor-made for the African continent. Thank you. Just that.
Thank you very much, Esther. Thank you for bringing that. We need to have homemade solutions, and because we know our problems better.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. But maybe on the flip of the coin, much as we're recommending the governments to do 1, 2, 3, 4 things, what is the private sector doing to also complement the government? Because how ready are we? How much are we investing in these tools? How do we really want to secure ourselves? But maybe those are things that my seniors are going to mention in the closing remarks. If there's no other question, the rest were just compliments to the participants, to the panelists. Rosemary Butari is saying we need tailoring trainings to fit specific roles in an organization is key, and compliments to Esther. Mercy Makitalika, more training should be given to all people in our societies so that to bring more awareness concerning cyber threats and attacks. Compliments to Esther again. And ASCOM recommends that I think we need to allocate more time to this topic and online discussion. I think this shows how important this topic is, and I think my seniors are listening to this. Probably we will have time to organize more to this, because I'm very sure discussions were not exhausted as were supposed to be. But of course, we are so mindful of time and other engagements that all the panelists and participants have. So thank you very much, dear panelists. I would have given a request for a round of applause, but whoever you are, please give a round of applause to our panelists, starting with myself. Thank you. So without further ado, I think we are drawing to a close, but I would request that we have EABC do closing and a bit of takeaways. Then GIZ, Mr. Simon also give his last remarks to thank the panelists, participants, and generally all the organizing team. Thank you very much. ED, please. You're welcome. Is EABC still on the line? I think may have jumped off, but Simon, please.
No, Jeffrey.
Oh,
Hello, Jeffrey. Sorry,
Karibu, Eddie.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeffrey. Thanks to the panelists. Thanks to the GIZ team. Indeed, this has been a very interesting session, and I want to commend and appreciate both the organizers and the panelists in terms of the topic. The key takeaways from me, leaving alone the digital tools and instrument, but the issue of culture, building the culture of resilience, the culture of awareness about the cyber security issues. I think that is very paramount on our side. How do we raise awareness? How do we build culture across the board, not only on the e-commerce or other sectors, but across the board? Then, of course, that leads to also infrastructure, and I think this is also a takeaway in terms of what infrastructure do we have. how do we boost the current structure to ensure that we mitigate all the risks that are related to cyber crimes? So I think that is also very, very critical. Then how do we engage, how do we bring on board all the key actors involved? I'm happy, and under this session, there has been also the banking sector, there has been all the sectors present, and the insight has been very, very, very useful. But the critical one is now trade angle and investment angle, which is very, very critical as the region is moving towards being a knowledge-based economy. The cyber security issues need to be taken on board. How do we integrate that in our drive to roll out to digital products, in our drive in terms of skills development? How do we do that? I think this is a takeaway for me and the EABC team, as well as the GIZ. I think the insight has been very useful, and I really want to thank you. I thank all the participants. Thank all participants from across the board, from the EAC, from the continent, who have been very, 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 very active in this session. So with those few remarks, again, with your wisdom, Geoffrey, I think we hand over to Simon. Thanks, and really I want to thank you very much for moderating this session.
Thank you very much. Then if I may come in. Yeah, thanks a lot, first of all, for the moderation as well, Geoffrey, and for the team to organize this webinar. A lot of appreciation, and thank you very much to all the speakers and the panelists, as well as the participants, and the discussion and questions on this topic. To keep it short, I think one of the key takeaways that we as GIZ, but also as a project here in the region, supporting skills and capacities, are taken away from this webinar is that there's still a long way to go. And this webinar and this discussion probably came to a good point, a right time, because as it has been said by Dr. Catherine, that cybersecurity is at its infancy, so there's a lot to do, and we are very happy to do our part and also continue this discussion. We also understand that there's more discussion, especially on the regional level, for the harmonization and facilitating more integration also then in the digital businesses, that there's more discussion and collaboration necessary. So you will hear from us again, and we hope we can continue where we stopped today. I think, as everyone mentioned, there's a short time now to discuss everything that would be important. Thank you, everyone, and we hope you enjoyed the webinar as well, the exchange, and that you have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, ED, and thank you, everyone. I think we have come to the close of this important webinar, and I wish everyone a very, very lovely day. COVID is still around. Please social distance, wear a mask, sanitize, must finally take a vaccine. Thank you very much. Have a good day.